Konferenz wird nun
First
aufgezeichnet.
cybersecurity event in 2026. I think it's the first one. I would like to kick off with a quote from Adele. Hello from the other side. It's the first and will be the most important cybersecurity space event for me, because I will officially pass over the leadership to my dear friend Khalid. As you might know, I joined Veeam in December 2025, so I'm working as an enterprise architect for Veeam software. And with that, I officially have to step down, and I'm very happy to have Khalid on board to continue leading this group, and I will still be contributing to that group. My role today will be the co-host. I will do some housekeeping. I will manage the chat. I will answer the questions and manage the Q&A. So yeah, very warm welcome again to everyone around the globe. And Khalid, maybe you would like to take over and lose a few words about yourself.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, just a couple of words about me. My name is Khalid. I'm a senior consultant for a company in Germany doing infrastructure consulting, and have a big focus on Veeam and working with the product since, like, I think version 4.5 or something. So it's quite some time. And yeah, and I'm happy to be the new leader in this this community space, and I hope I can follow in the footsteps of Lucas. So yeah, Edwin, I think we don't have to introduce you, but if you want, you can say some words about yourself.
I can. Actually, welcome, and thank you for stepping in the footsteps of Lucas. So, yeah, we already poached him, and he's now part of Veeam. So, who knows for the future? But yeah, great to have you on board. Edwin Weidema, field CTO for EMEA. Been with Veeam almost 10 years. Been in this space a little bit more, like 30 plus years. You see the gray hair. So yeah, being an explorer, other people call it a hacker, from like the early days. I still like to explore things, find how things work, rip things apart, and try to rebuild it then. Not always works, but hey, that's the fun, right?
Yeah, sure.
I have to interrupt you here for the first time. The gray hair is AI, isn't it?
You never know.
Usually it's not much longer. As for the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. We will answer them. If it fits in the slot, we will answer them right away, and if not, we're gonna have some time in the end to talk about it. So, Edwin, let's get it started, I guess.
Okay, let's go. So, Cove, what? Yeah, that was kind of the question I got from both gentlemen. It's like, okay, Veeam, you bought Coveware 2024 March. What is that about? We got still getting questions from customers that are, okay, we see Coveware by Veeam. What's Coveware? But that's also what's kind of that subtitle, Elevating Ransomware Readiness. So we want to dive into this and also make this a little bit bi-directional. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We can go and dive deeper into that. But before I go into what Coveware is, I have to go into like the common incident response lifecycle. The common incident response lifecycle, it's kind of about preparation. How do we know what to do when it happens? But then it's about detection, because if you don't know that something happened, you cannot do the other steps. So how do we identify when it happens? And if we identify that something happened, how do we stop it? So better said, how can we contain it? And that's sometimes also called like controlling the blast radius. Making sure that you know, hold on, something is coming in, there's a leak. We don't want the whole ship to go down because of the water that's coming in, plug the leak. But then you really have to find out, is that just that one hole or are there more holes in there? And then from there, how do we eliminate it? So how can we patch up those holes, making sure that everything is safe again? And then we go into like recovery. And recovery is kind of pumping the water out of the ship. How do we remediate any impacts, but also restore operations? But before you restore operations, you really have to do that first, or that fourth step, eliminate it from your environment. I see too many organizations out there that jump the gun and they start restoring while they have no clue what really happened. If they are still in the system, if still the system is kind of connected to other systems that shouldn't be connected. So making sure that you know that you eliminated the threat from your environment is really important. And then after remediate and restore, go to the post incident. Because if something really happens or happened, make sure that you learn from it. How did it come in? What was the goal? What did you see? How can you prepare better for that? And that's also why you see you come back to the preparation stage. That's also that whole cycle that goes round and round and round. It's a continuous circle there. But yeah, talk about ransomware, and I've been on stage multiple times and also helped a lot of organizations worldwide, even before we bought Coveware in 2024. It's about some rudimental things. It's about some questions. And those questions I want to also ask the two gentlemen on the call, but also anyone else on the call, if you can drop it in the chat. Would you negotiate with the threat actors, with the bad guys? Is that a yes or is that a no? Shalit, what would you do?
I would say no.
You would say no.
No, they're not trustful anyways. I mean, they just broke into my system. Why would I negotiate with them?
Lucas?
Here's the deal. Sometimes you can start this kind of negotiation just to see how they react, to get more information about that attackers. So I think it really depends.
Yeah, I would go for a yes, but I will explain later on. Because I have another question for you. Because, Shalit, you said no for negotiation. So you normally don't go to this stage, pay the ransom. Or will you go to that stage? Even if you didn't negotiate, you will pay up and just like sweep it under the rug and forget about it. What would you do?
Like from what I know, I wouldn't do it because usually, I mean, most probably they're gonna keep like a backdoor. So doesn't
Here's the
like
deal. I think we can have a backdoor as well. So I would go with it depends. But I think it can be sometimes wise to agree somehow to not pay the whole ransom, but to let them know you're willing to cooperate to get even more information.
I saw just the chat pop up on my screen, and Ian, you're right. If you pay once, you pay multiple times. Maybe not even to the same group, but to other groups. But they are both kind of sketchy in that art because it's kind of 50 shades of gray. But if you go to the first question, will you negotiate? Yes, please, always negotiate. Because Lucas has an angle there. If you start negotiating, but please also pick like Coveware, a party that's specialized in negotiations. Don't do it yourself because you will be in there with emotion. But by negotiating, you can get an angle. Who is attacking you? What's their goal? Is it just financial? That's kind of the easy part. And I always like, just financial, we can work with this. Because if it's someone that's from like internal, got laid off, and has a chip on their shoulder, it's not about paying the ransom. It's about crippling you or getting you out of business. So if you negotiate yes or no, it doesn't matter. The outcome is already established. But you don't know. If you don't negotiate, you don't get that valuable information. That's also what, if we dive deeper in, I will show you about the whole Coveware thing. But then we go to like pay the ransom. And what we also say, and also from Coveware and also from Veeam perspective, and that's also why Coveware is now Veeam, never pay the ransom. But yeah, there are some outcomes that you have to pay the ransom because you were not prepared. You have no other option anymore, and it's or pay or go out of business. And that's a really tough one if you are in that state. But also sometimes law enforcement will come in and will ask you to pay the ransom on their behalf. Because it's kind of follow the money, right? It's a digital ledger. Often it's being done by bitcoins, and bitcoins is a digital ledger, so we can find them. But sometimes it's really hard because they break it up in so many puzzle pieces that it will become really sketchy and also hard to find. But there will always be a trail. And yeah, also those bad guys want to buy like a Ferrari or something like that, and they don't pay with Bitcoin, so they have to go through an exchange to a bank account to convert it into, between brackets, real money, right? Also bits, bits and bytes. But that's kind of the thing. That's why you have to think about, okay, I have to make up a plan. If something happens to us like that, do we negotiate? Yes or no? How do we do it? Is there a party we're going to involve to do it on our behalf, because they can get much more information out of it? Are we going to pay the ransom? Yes or no? Hopefully not. But sometimes you're in that kind of a dead spot. You have no other option. And that's also why we came into like what, and that's also why I asked our cybersecurity space buddies to help me with answering that question, because I thought it was a really good question, because I'm kind of in the middle of it, and I've seen and worked with Coveware over a couple of years. I was like, that's kind of a good question, because I know, but yeah, how is it out there? So Coveware by Veeam. Coveware itself is a leading ransomware readiness and response firm, specializing in cyber extortion negotiation. That's also why we always say they are specialized in the whole thing about ransomware. If you go back to like the incident response cycle, you will see that there are more parties out there. And often what they do is they hire Coveware for the negotiation and the ransomware part. And they will do incident response, because it's not just ransomware that could cripple a business. It can be anything. Anything that's like triggering an incident response. Normally, organizations have specialists on standby or on a retainer. And under that retainer, they will do, for instance, Coveware for if that's a ransomware case. That's also, if you look into Coveware and the core competencies there, they do data aggregation. They have an extensive threat actor database. If you go back to the first question, do you negotiate yes or no? Because of the negotiations they have done, and they do kind of on average 100 cases per month. They put all that information, the way they talk to the people, the way they get responses, just by the ransom note or just the communication. We now already can establish quite a good educated guess what kind of group of persons are behind the attack. And that's all because all that information is being put into a database, an extensive threat actor database. But it's also evidence-based negotiations, the strategy and assessment of likely outcomes. Because that's one of those big questions mark you have if you go into that kind of negotiations and maybe even paying the ransom. Hey, we can pay a ransom, but do we get our money back? Question mark. If you have some party that has a database that can say, the likelihood is like 86% that you get your data back, that's quite a good number. But if you know, like, yeah, but it's only like 20%, because normally they're not that organized and they screw up the whole thing about encryption, then you have a different outcome. And also, that is what C-level needs. To the point information, is this viable? Yes or no? Is this an option? Yes or no? What if we do this? And think about financial operations in that part, because that's the other one. Okay, we've seen, we did the negotiations, we found out we have to do a payment or get something there. How many organizations do have like Bitcoins on their balance? Not so many. And what we have seen also that some of the organizations said like, hey, we're going to pay up, buy Bitcoins. What happens is they try to buy Bitcoins. The bank said, hey, hold on, suspicious activity, and they closed down their account. So they were ransomed, or better said, the data was encrypted. The bank said, fraudulent type of money going through. We close down that account, or better said, freeze it, and you have nowhere to go. So that's also why you have to think up front. That's the whole thing about preparation. That's also why Coveware is specialized in that, to make sure that there are Bitcoins, but also that the whole paper trail is real, and that you know, okay, hold on, we had to do this because of business. This is the whole thing. And then you have to know which group is it you're paying to. Because if that's one on the, for instance, it's a state-sponsored actor, and there's a particular list for terrorism, and if you pay to that, you have a bigger problem. So even if it's like 50K to get your data back, that 50K can end up you being on a blacklist as an organization. So think about that. But also technical expertise, and that's also what I really loved about Coveware, the people that work there, the technology they have in-house, the patents that's beneath it. They have real knowledge about the whole thing. So from the whole process, the data aggregation, the database is gold. But also financial operations, how you work through, how the processes are. and then the technical expertise behind it to find, okay, what really happened? Because that's always one of those questions if you have a ransomware case on your hands. Who's the one attacking you? What is the goal? What did they touch? Because if you have like 10,000 virtual machines, are you going to do a recovery for 10,000 virtual machines? I hope not. Only if they touched all the 10,000 virtual machines. But if they only touch like 3 machines and only 2 accounts, maybe that's a better angle to go. But you have to know that, and that's where the technical expertise comes into. There's also go for it.
There's a really important thing. Technically, we would be able to recover 10,000 VMs at a time. That's not the challenge.
No.
But this takes time. So no matter how big the infrastructure is, I think you really have to consider and lay out some different plans and layers, because this is basically the last thing you're going to do, because this has an impact. Even if Veeam is capable of doing so, it always has an impact, and we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, that's also what I always tell C-level. Really think hard before you push that red button, because that red button can end up costing you more than it will save you. Because what Lucas said is totally true. We can recover for that, and we can help you recover totally. But it can also mean that your whole organization is being set back for like 24 hours or even more, and you lose data. And sometimes that's not even needed. So making sure that you know what happened, that's the gold question in there. And that's where the technical expertise comes in there. But also like recon, and we're going to dive into that particular more down the road. But also you need decrypt. So normally when you pay up, you get a decryption key. Would you use the decryption key into your environment and let it roam loose when it's coming from like a threat actor? Normally you wouldn't, because it might be that like they hit 25% of your organization, you get a recovery key, and all of a sudden the rest is being encrypted with something else. And that's also why they have that technology to load the key, test the key, and use that key on particular files. But also think about that the threat actors can also make mistakes, and we have seen that over and over again. They sent you a key that didn't work, but that messes with the data. That's also why we say always take a backup, even if it looks like garbage now because it's encrypted. Take a backup, because as soon as you start the decrypting process, something stops or something is wrong, you cannot go back. You have to go back to your backup, do recovery, and try again. And that's where the UniDecrypt comes in, because it tests the key, it tests if it runs through, but also it's much faster than normally the tools you get from a threat actor. Because the tools you get from a threat actor, they used all your resources in your environment to encrypt you. And the tool they will give you is like 1 CPU, 4 gigs of memory. Why? Because that's also a business imperative for them. Because you will say, hey, this is not fast enough, this is taking time. Oh, you can buy more keys. And you have to pay up and pay up and pay up. And then beneath it, and that's also what kind of is tied to all 3 of those boxes, the proactive services. So best practice training, customized tabletops, exercises exclusively for our retained clients, but also making sure that people know about things that happens in your infrastructure. But I must say, I always take this there, because Bill, the CEO of Coveware, he really has a really good saying. And I talked to him like in the first couple of months there. He said, I can tell in the first 15 minutes of a conversation how well or how poorly an incident response is going to progress, just based on how prepared an organization presents themselves during the initial phone call. And through all the cases I've done, not with Coveware, but before, I totally agree with him, because normally it's chaos, and then chaos to the max. I only got like one organization that was really prepared. It's like, okay, we have something on the hands. We need some help. We know what to do. We don't touch the system at this moment in time, but please help. And the rest was more like, The only thing I don't have to do is expectation management. Tell the people, okay, I know what happened. You're stressed. Go out, kick a dustbin, get a cup of coffee. After 5 minutes, come back in the room. We talk.
Got a question here, Edwin.
Yeah.
What could be like 1 or 2 opening questions to quickly find out how prepared an organization really is? Do you have any ideas, any examples?
Yes. one of those questions that will come in, or what I will do is like, okay, do you have a team assembled? Normally you get two answers. One is like, team? What team? I'm seeing something on the screen and you're the first one on my list to call. So there's no team. The rest of the organization is still in the dark. The second question is, okay, how did you communicate to your organizations, but also to your partners, that there's something wrong? I've seen examples that a phone call comes in from like a news reporter. The receptionist gets the phone and the news reporter asks, is there something wrong at your place? Because I'm trying to look on your website and it's not doing anything. And then the receptionist will answer like, oh yeah, there's a red screen on here. And it's like, screening for Bitcoins. And then all of a sudden, hey, hold on, there's something wrong. So making sure that the rest of the organization also knows what's happening, but also knows how to handle after that. So making sure that the communication flow is really top notch. Let me say it like that. Those are the two that I normally see, and also can really determine fast how well or how poorly they prepared. So go why? Cyber extortion readiness. And that's kind of those three words, cyber extortion readiness. Remember that incident response? Preparation. That's where we start. That's also the kind of the core of Coveware. So readiness by enablement, workshops and advice. And then having that technology to run through an infrastructure, but also run through the infrastructure in two different ways. One, be proactive, so scanning through, and if something pops up that shouldn't be there, get an alarm. Or the second one, as an IR tool, incident response tool. Okay, something happened. What happened? What fired up this whole wildfire? And that's where they also use that same tooling, but in a kind of different goal and angle. Expert forensics, analysis, and forecast, because it will spread out a lot of things. And if you're not familiar with how attackers work and how they infiltrate and kind of those things, so you have to know those digital breadcrumbs and how to follow that. Of course, the pending software, Recon, spits out a lot of information to a dashboard. And that's where you can kind of start trailing from where it started and where it went to. But that's kind of how you know, and also how you should be able to read that. Then you go into like expert negotiations and settlement if required. But negotiations, yes, please always do that, because you get so much valuable information just by negotiating with the party. Not just information from them, but you can also stall them to find out internally as an organization, okay, what options do we have? And I always say you have four options. One, you have a backup so you can do a recovery. Totally good. If you can do that for 100% of all your data, you're in business. Second one is rebuild your data. But that's not for every data set that's available. But for some data sets, you can, like databases, and you have like circular logging, and you can replay that towards the database. You can get back into a good shape. The third one is kind of saying goodbye to data. And that's a really tough one, because then you also have to know, hold on, my data set, what's in it, what's important, what is not important. I can say like 95% of organizations worldwide have no clue about all the data they have and what particular data set is important or is not important, and what is the impact or what is the cost for that data if it's gone. And that's also, but it's kind of a sidestep. That's why we bought Security AI to get more insights in the whole data set. But that's for kind of a new topic for another for another webinar, because we can fill our time there. And that's kind of also where expert negotiations get you more and more information to take a really good funded and founded decision on how to progress. Because after those three, you only have the fourth option, is to pay or not to pay. And to pay is get your data back through a decryption key. And then we'll come to that stage for decryption tooling to the end, to end downtime. And that's also the Uni decrypt I talked about. Load the key from the threat actors into that tool, and that tool uses all the power it can if the key has been found truthful and helpful. And then post-incident and insurance documentation. That's where a lot of organizations go wrong and also forget about. Make sure that you have a trail of evidence, but also put it on paper for law enforcement, but also now with all the compliance regulations worldwide kicking in, you have to have a total chain of custody, as they say. And making sure that you have that on paper is really valuable, but also knowing how to put that on paper. What happened, what you did during the process, during the hours, even with timing. That makes it really valuable to have like a retainer from like Coveware. That's also what I talked about earlier. So there are digital forensics and incident response parties, DFIR, and then you have like cyber extortion, readiness, and response. That's also why you see that a lot of those digital forensic and incident response parties have like a subcontract with Coveware for particular ransomware cases, because that's a field on its own. One of those things that Coveware does is preparing organizations. So quarterly threat actor intelligence briefings, because if you know the threat actors out there, how they target you and how they hack and crack other organizations, you're more prepared. So quarterly sessions to go over recent ransomware trends, data collected in real cyber attacks, and that's also all what's in the database. 60 to 90 minutes sessions delivered by Coveware SMEs in that part. And that's that preparation. So delivery of the quarterly report. But also, and that's the last one, recommendations on how to protect from trending exploited vulnerabilities. And advisories, TTPs, so techniques, tactics, and procedures. I better say tactics, techniques, procedures, TTPs. And that's from the MITRE attack framework. That's also why it's tied to, and we'll show that later on. But that personalized training, because this is not normal behavior. Normally, you hope you never come across and never be targeted for a ransomware attack. But we see it now more and more all over the board. And that's also why I have a saying, it's not about if, it's not about when, it's about how many times now. And people will start laughing like, we never experienced something like that. Think about the attacks that happen. Not every attack ends with ransomware. So a lot of organizations have already been breached. And what we have seen, especially when there are tools like Recon being deployed, like, hold on, that's like old trails, old digital trails. You had a breach on your hands like already multiple times. Fortunately for you, it didn't end up in ransomware, but might be that they stole data, exfiltrated data, or did something else, or opened the door and put your system into like a bit farming mode. Or better said, the power in your data center is being used for something else, and you have a really nice electricity bill, and you have no clue why your system is so slow.
We have to point out here that this is the case for cloud environments as well, because they can be compromised as well. So what happens is with that dynamic resource allocations, you will run into very, very high billing scenarios when you face issues like that. So this is both for cloud environments and on-premise environments, in my opinion.
Yeah. But yeah, if you know how billing is for cloud, and I've seen many of those bills,
yeah,
it's kind of like voodoo. You have no clue what's in there. It's like that stack of a paper. It's like, okay, there's a big bill. When you go through, it's like, okay, there's something happening. I have no clue what, but yeah, there's something really happening. But that's kind of that remark you will see. That's one of those tripwires. But normally, you only get like after a month, or sometimes even after a quarter, you get the bill. So it can be that the bill normally was like 10,000 euros or $10,000 or something like that. All of a sudden, after 3 months, you have $200,000 of a bill. You're like, okay, what happened? That's where you will see, hey, hold on, our system has been misused, or better said, it's being really used.
Yeah, just to come back to the fundamentals, because what I think is like what is really interesting is the information flow within when you're in these situations. Because I had like both extremes, like not talking to the internal stuff at all, and then we had to go to the branches and do stuff, and people there didn't know why they can't work. So that was like the one extreme, and the other extreme was like everybody knew about it. They were like open information within the company. So it went a little bit smoother in that in that case, actually, with the rest of the people.
Yeah, and that's so true, Shalit, for that one, because that's also why we do this, train
Yeah.
all different stakeholders, like the fundamentals, also for executives to pay or not to pay. If you have never done this before, you have no clue what will happen. If you run through some like tabletop exercises, through some other education, you kind of know dry run what could happen and what will happen, and you will start acting and using that muscle memory. And the muscle memory will save you from a lot of bad things already in the beginning. Better said, bad decisions. Like, hey, just push the red button, restore everything. Yeah, I've seen that before. People are from on-prem restoring to the cloud after 10 minutes. Hey, we're up and running. It works. It's like, yeah, perfect. 10 minutes later, everything encrypted again. Because nobody thought about putting firewalls in between, making sure that was not published to the internet. There was no contract with the cloud provider. And those
Yeah.
kind of things is like preparations you need. And that's also what's in that education there.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I mean, there are people who think like, oh, we weren't we weren't encrypted yesterday, so backup from yesterday should be fine. So yeah.
Uh, that is kind of true, because that's also what I will normally say. Go always to the latest and greatest backup,
Yeah.
but be prepared and also
Yeah.
be aware.
Yeah.
There might be something in there as extra features. That's also why you always have to go through like a clean room, run your backups, your latest and greatest, but okay, hold on. Most likely something is in there because it didn't start like 1 minute ago. That's normally that attack is already like 6 months going. Of course, we have seen now with AI that the whole gap from like roaming through your environment, 210 days of dwell time is now all of a sudden 24 hours, because they breach you, they have AI tools, they run through your infrastructure, and they launch directly, so as opportunistic as possible. But still, a lot of the attacks are still with dwell time, because a normal, like me, a hacker, I don't want to dump in like ransomware, because that makes someone know that I'm in the system. What's the beauty about being a hacker in a system and nobody knows about it? That's what's really normally where a hacker is about. Then you can get like the cookies from the back of the shells until you open up the whole shelf to the front. Nobody will notice until they say, hey, hold on, I thought there was a cookie there. Where did that go? But otherwise, people don't know. And that's also the whole thing about stealing. And that's also where you see that ransomware is now becoming more exfiltrationware. So people trying to exfiltrate data, but don't even bother anymore to encrypt. Or they say, hold on, we steal data and we encrypt everything, and we keep you busy with trying to decrypt it while we take your data, sell it off, and run for the hills. So yeah, fundamentals, continued education, because threats keep changing. Threat actors keep changing. But also quarterly education from other attacks. Learn from other people. That's also like that last step in that incident response cycle, right? What did you learn from it? But also share that learning with other organizations that haven't been in that particular pickle, in that strange era, or in that really hard negotiation phase, or even in something that's completely locked down. Making sure that people know about it, that really helps. So tabletop exercises, kind of simulations. And by simulating and running through how things go down, people really start to wonder, because normally it's kind of like magic. There's also always the one thing I get. Ooh, it looks like magic. It just started. We have no clue. It just started. So, and then if you run through, then people will start thinking like, oh, hold on. Yeah, we had kind of an incident like 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden the network was really slow and internet wasn't even moving forward. No, that's kind of the exfiltration going through. And all those small bits and pieces of that digital footprint, those digital breadcrumbs, that's, if you can connect those dots, like, okay, hold on. Most likely This started 6 months ago at that particular date, because that's where we first saw something strange happening. And during that time frame, other small strange things happened. So yeah, Coveware. So we know the why. We know what Coveware is, what they can do. So what does it really do? And what do they really do? That's kind of the assessment. And that's what I talked about, expert forensics analysis. So using Recon to assess, understand the client impact. So they will start installing Recon on different systems, making sure, okay, run through, find me all the digital traces you can find. And that forensic data will be mapped to the attack framework, or better said, the Mitra attack framework, the TTPs. Identify the ransomware. Also identify threat actor groups. And as you see, there are threat actor groups. What happens? Sometimes one group breaches you, and then sells it off to another group. Why? Because if I breach you, you didn't find it. Hey, if there's nobody knowing that something is breached, there's no, as we always say, if there's no dead body, there's no foul, right? There's no crime. That's sometimes why different groups do different things. And that group that sells it off to another one, another one can be, for instance, being specialized in deploying ransomware. That's why you see identifying threat actor groups, because we can find multiple groups. Like, oh, hold on, this signature and this modus operandus is most likely that group, but now this group is asking for a ransom payment. But also review data on threat actors there. And encryption verification is kind of that proof of life. Okay, send us some of those files and also give us a decryptor. We will test it. If that works, we know, okay, you have the data. But also know you touched that particular data. Also, which data group you touched. Because if they don't produce anything of that data, it becomes interesting. Did they really encrypt it? Or did they just deploy a screensaver? And we've seen that before. And also an organization that paid for it. And then afterwards we found out, hey, hold on, it's only a screensaver that locks everything down. You cannot do anything until you boot up differently. So that's kind of when to contact there. So evidence of exfiltration, ransom notes. This is what Veeam already can do from the backup perspective. We run through the backup, we will look for particular ransom notes and how ransom notes are being built. And like indicators of compromise. Anything coming through, and we can check for indicators of compromise, that's one of those, or ransom notes in those files. But also random encryptions. Because sometimes encryption is not done, okay, it's Friday just before Christmas and everything is encrypted right after it. Sometimes it's like a drip encryption. They start doing encryption of files that haven't been touched for like a year, because you will not find out that they started encrypting all the files that you didn't touch for a year, but it makes them it gives them more time to encrypt the rest of the things. Because if you have a lot of files, also for a threat actor, it takes a lot of time to encrypt them. So Recon for Veeam infrastructure. And that's also why we have those two different things. So Recon for Veeam infrastructure is proactive. You will install it on the Veeam platform on different, like the backup server proxies. The Recon ER is the same tooling, but it's being deployed by Coveware by Veeam when an incident already occurred to find forensics, digital traces. And sometimes you will see that both will be used, but it's the same executable. So Recon proactively detects attackers. So it's technology, it's available for the Veeam Data Platform Advanced and the Premium Edition. We first started with only Premium Edition. It's now being expanded. Earlier this year, we started with opening it up for the Veeam Data Platform Advanced also, because it will save a lot of headaches. People will be triggered and they will also get an alert. Hold on, something is going on. There is, for instance, an FTP server all of a sudden on your Veeam backup and replication server. Or there is a particular connection with an IP address from the internet and it's bidirectional. Or there are onion links detected on one of those servers That means that you have kind of a connection with what we call, between brackets, the dark web, to send stuff, but also receive stuff into your infrastructure. So what is it and how it works? It's a really lightweight agent. Deployed on proxies, gateways, servers running Active Directory, up to 10 servers in your infrastructure. Always point to those, the proxies, the gateways, Active Directory, because those are the high value targets. And now you will say, hold on, high value, it's the backup server. Yeah, but if you go and look from like a hacker perspective, everyone has data that's like scattered all over the place, right? In your own data center, maybe in another data center, you have something in the cloud, you have software as a service. But what normally happens is if people of organizations do a backup, what do? Backup, bring it all to one location. That's why you will see that for any of the backups, there will be a target on there. Because otherwise I have to hack all the other places. Now I only have to hack the backup. If I can hack the backup, I have all the data in one place. And it should be important. Why should you otherwise take a backup of it, right? But also fast collection of log events, network processing, system information. They will all be secure upload to the Coveware cloud environment for running through and analysis, analytics in that part. And it will automatically map to the Mitra attack framework. And I will show you.
Just a question here, Edwin.
Go.
Any recommendations on which system you would deploy the agent first?
Backup server is number one. I will go back one slide because backup server, number one, Active Directory, number two. And then I will go for proxies and gateways.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Why backup and Active Directory? Because those two are like number one targets. Backup server, because all the data will be under that and the backup server is controlling everything. And also what we've seen, if you aren't careful, everything is open. You will see that people will try to do an exfiltration by doing a backup and sending the backup outside. Active Directory, because you will need access to your infrastructure. And Active Directory means if I can get access, for instance, to your account, Lucas, I become Lucas all of a sudden. If I don't do strange things like working in the middle of the night, hold on, you are working in the middle of the night. So something out of the ordinary, that you're on a holiday and all of a sudden I log in on your account, then I might be flagged. But otherwise, if I do the same thing which you normally do, I become invisible in the infrastructure. I can do almost anything. And that's why Active Directory is also that one, also a number one target in that part.
Yeah. Let me just throw in a very quick question from the audience, because that would be a nice idea. Can it be deployed to the VSA, Veeam software appliance?
No, not at this moment in time.
Okay.
Because the Veeam software appliance is completely hardened and locked down.
Yeah.
To prevent anything from being installed. But we are looking into it to kind of see if we can build in like a reading scanner in it.
Yeah.
But we'll try to keep it like lightweight and also completely locked down. Because anything you will install on the server opens up for another attack vector. So the attack surface becomes bigger. That's why we are hesitating and also looking into the pros and the cons for that.
Maybe there's a possibility to use it like a manual service or something like that. So it's not on always, but if you need it, if you want to check it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some things they are really smart, guys and ladies. They're thinking about what you're saying, Khalid. Not a deployable, but maybe a service that can be connected with like the scanning service and scan it remotely, or have a lightweight in there. It drags something from a particular known location, fires up, gets the results, sends it out, and stops again. Kind of what we now do with all the VSA and like the hardened repositories with the firewalls. All ports are closed until one of the services needs a port. Then it will open it up from the inside out.
Yeah.
With that off. So making sure that like the surroundings are completely shielded until something from the inside needs an access to the outside and opens it up from the inside to the outside. But yeah, those are kind of the things we're looking for. What will come or not come, I don't know. But that's also a really good question for that one. So the MITRE attack framework, if you look on the slide, you will see all the things that they have found, the date, the risk, high, some are even flagged, some are critical. You will see the host name. So, okay, which server was it? The MITRE technology type. So that's the T1567, the top one, program execution. It's normally not what you want to see. But if I go down, like a critical one, there's like a program execution at the bottom, you will see program files, application data, Chrome. Hey, hold on, that's from the browser being fired up at the server itself directly. So most likely opening up something to the outside world. And because of the T, you can also click on that T to get information from the MITRE attack framework. Okay, what is it? What can I do against it? How can I prevent this? And also mark it from, okay, that's normal behavior. This shouldn't be in there. So mark it, say, okay, this is normal behavior. We know about this. And it can sometimes be because some of the tools that are being flagged are also being used by red teaming or by security teams to protect the infrastructure. So detect the signs of attack before it's too late. Exactly the last one, before it's too late. So Recon identifies early indicators. And early indicators of compromise can be a lot of things. But bijvoorbeeld backup events. Backup security settings change that signal compromise. What we have seen all of a sudden, the number of restore points dropping from 30 to 1. Making sure that you only have like a backup from one day. And after that, you have no backup anymore. And then it will fire up an encryption just before the backup will go live, and they encrypt everything. And then you don't have a backup, and you don't have any production anymore. But also brute force attacks. Remember, I took over like Lucas's account. If there are no signals internally that from that one system, and I'm pinging like all the systems and trying to log in on different ways, there is no detection there. I can just try. If you know about the passwords a lot of people use, that's also why Active Directory will be one of those targets. If I'm allowed to start a brute force attack with a dictionary, I will say within 2 minutes, I will already have 2 accounts with passwords. Because one of those things, it will be password 123, exclamation mark, or password 2026, or welcome 2026. We can already name a few of those passwords that will be in use. But also network connections. And that's how I try to help organizations with their architecture. If you're building up your architecture, don't make one flat network. Make sure that you have different zones. Think about it as a ship, making sure that you have different compartments. That one of the compartments is being compromised, there's a hole in it, and it takes on water, that you can close the doors and not the whole ship go down. That's the same with your infrastructure, making sure that you have segmentation. And that segmentation makes sure that the storage, for instance, for the backups is not in the same place as the production storage, but also making sure that the management of your backup is not in the same place as where your data for your backup is being stored. There's kind of the separation between the management plane or control plane and the data plane. And by making sure that you know that there are connections that are authorized and the rest is not authorized, then you will find those signs of attack quite fast, especially when Recon is running and he knows about, okay, those points are authorized, anything else is not authorized and should be marked and flagged.
Just from your experience, what would you declare as the most typical first sign you see from a technical perspective that a customer could be compromised? Anything from your experience?
And then I go to the fourth one, unusual user activity. A lot of organizations, you can log in, can log in, can log in, and try to log in, and try to log in, and again, and again. There's no lock or block in it. So hold on, you typed in your password 3 times wrong. Now you have to wait for 5 minutes. Because, yeah, you can make of course, anyone will make mistakes. But if you don't have any blocker there, I can go and do the brute force attack. And if you look through all the attacks, they all have one thing in common. That normally is like a phishing email coming in and then an attack on the user identity. The identity is kind of key. If you're running locally with Active Directory or you're using Entra ID, There's also, if you look at Microsoft, they have like 600 million attacks on Android ID daily. Why? Because if I can take over an account, I'm in, I can do anything. And I don't have to hack like hardware, software, use zero-day exploits. No, just the user and account name. So account name and a password. And then from like the user activity go into like suspicious file activity. That's also why we, for instance, Object First. I know about them. I know that some others also have that. They have like a honeypot. What happens is they scream out, "Hey, we have a Veeam backup replication server running here." Anyone that tries to log in, it will be flagged directly because that's kind of suspicious. You can also do it with some of those files. Create on your infrastructure, for instance, passwords.docx. Put it somewhere, make sure that as soon as someone opens that file or tries to open that file, an alert goes off. That's kind of a tripwire. And also make sure that other people don't know about that file. Just put it somewhere where normal people shouldn't be accessing it or seeing it. And that one can help you. And also if you do that on like different locations or folders, but also make sure that tell your partners in crime in IT that you have done that. I've seen too many times that people are, hey, hold on, there's something strange going on. It's like, yeah, there's a folder I'm trying to delete, but there's something wrong here because someone else has a task to clean up or look for something that's kind of suspicious. And then the last one is the data exfiltration attempts. And the data exfiltration attempts is really about making sure that you know outbound traffic. And what I've seen is that a lot of organizations just have like any for the outside or from any machine from the inside world is authorized to open a connection to the outside world. And that's why a lot of data exfiltration is so successful, unfortunately. Think about the segmentation, segregation, but also making sure that you have firewalls that will block a lot of that from, for instance, the backup server or from like the proxies to the outside world. You only want that backup data to go to the locations you have designated. Any other location should be blocked from the start. If you don't do that, it makes it a lot riskier to get like exfiltration on your hands. So one of those things in that database is this. So they will look through, okay, what's the ransom amount? What's the data recovery rate? So if you have that extortion statistic or exfiltration statistic, how can you get information from that? But also know, hold on, if, for instance, here Akira has been in that system, how likely is an exfiltration? And that's 100%. And validated is 85%. So think about everything is exfiltrated, but normally 85% will be exfiltrated if they have the possibilities for that one. But also making sure that you know if we pay for that particular decryption key, how likely is it that we get a key that works? And also, they will ask for like 3.9 billion of 3.9 million. Finally, the payment was late, it was lower, like 2.5. And if you look at Akira, that's like a different thing because they normally fire up a lot of encryptions and just see who pays up. Or better said, full time spray and pray and see where it goes through. A negotiation is also case resolve time. Knowing about, okay, you start negotiating, it will not be done within a day because the faster you want it to go, the more you will have to pay. And sometimes you want to just stretch it to see how the other options, recovery, rebuilding, or saying goodbye, is for your whole data set, or better said, the data set that has been touched. And if you know, hey, hold on, we can recover everything, we don't have to, but we want to stall them to make sure that we find out that every way into the infrastructure is being blocked and that you know that you are safe. before you cut off negotiations.
Just a quick question from the audience.
Mhm.
Does the analysis find its way into the Veeam Threat Center?
Good question. Let me jump. There we go. So I'm jumping a few slides ahead now. Yeah, integrations, correlations, backup threats with your broader security signal. So the whole thing about the recon scanner will also be visible in the threat center. That's why we try to get that telemetry from like different locations, different tools into one dashboard. And also with the acquiring of security AI, you will see that even more information also from like production data will be gathered into one dashboard, making sure that you have like up-to-date information as close as it is on the time frame where you're looking for. There we go. So settlement, if required, and that's the whole thing. We hope you don't have to settle. We hope you won't pay. Or better said, we will advise you not to pay. But sometimes, if that's the only option, the 50 Shades of Grey, or if law enforcement comes in, it can be that you have to settle. And then you have to know, okay, transparency, expertise on payment, cryptocurrency payment facilitations, but also compliance checks, making sure you don't end up on that blacklist because you did business with terrorists. Full documentations and no extra charge, markup, or spreads. So if you have to pay, for instance, 100K in Bitcoins, it will be 100K and not 110K. We don't want to make money of that. We only want to facilitate within the boundaries of the law. Sometimes also by law, it's not even possible to pay. Some organizations are on the particular laws, and that's also where Coveware comes in and says, hold on, you as an organization are under this law, you're not allowed. Or go to law enforcement. If law enforcement says yes, because they want to follow the money, then you have to put it on paper. And that's also why you see that full documentation. And that's really required.
But like, just another question. I mean, Coveware is like based in the US as everything, but do they have like the expertise in Europe and all
Yes.
the other countries as well? Because I
Yes.
mean, there are different regulations and.
Correct. They have worldwide. We are one of those specialized negotiators from Denmark for EMEA. And that's also one of them. I bumped into one of the cases. We didn't acquire Cove at that moment in time. He was working the case in England from his point of view. They were hired. We were in there because Veeam was doing a proof of concept with that party. And afterwards, we found out, Magnus and I, together at the bar, talking about it without mentioning any names about customers. And we looked at each other. Hey, hold on. That's their customer. Yeah. So we were both ends on the table. We didn't know. Now we are working together in that part. So yeah, we have expertise all over the world. And also different laws, different regulations, different ways of handling. And that's also important because of particular values that are in there, also particular ethics that are in there, but also different geos have different ways of working. Hope that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So decryption services, already talked about it, universal decrypt tool, running through that one. But also there are some decryptors already in there, and sometimes we find out that they have been hit by an already known variant, and we can already decrypt without even paying. So that's also why you get that kind of that Veeam complete data resilience package. So Veeam intelligence, getting that threat center what we showed, connections with the different data sources there, from like zero trust architectures into the recon, inline scanning what we have within Veeam, IOC tool scanner, signature based malware scanner. So that's like the threat hunter where we now also have from 12.3 onwards. And also the connecting with those different integrations, Palo Alto, CrowdStrike. For instance, CrowdStrike also has like incident response, and often Coveware is like a sub contractor under CrowdStrike if they do incident response and it is something about ransomware. And then you have that rolled up in like what we call Veeam cybersecure and Coveware cyber extortion, readiness and response. That's why we also see that we are kind of pivoting there, making sure that everyone has the tooling for recon, that we get information faster into the threat center, and then fill it up with services at the end if you need it as an organization. Having extra specialists about ransomware, negotiations, settlement, but also forensics.
Another audience question. Are there some plans to give customers the option to do that data processing outside of the US, for example, in Europe, anywhere?
Yes. It will
Any
still be in the
timeline on
cloud,
that?
but it will also be in different geos.
Okay, and any timeline on that?
No, I cannot elaborate on any timeline.
Okay.
But we're working on that.
Thank you.
How is recon different? Because that's one of those questions I normally get about EDR. And this kind of protecting against malware, that kind of thing. Recon is not EDR. It's running through. It's giving you like that second opinion. It gives you visibility across your infrastructure. Lightweight, easy deploy, but also it goes through a lot of log files, other things that it can find. It's purpose built for VBR, so they changed some things around to know the specific behavior of Veeam backup replication without manual tuning your log paths in there. Automatically being updated for indicators of compromise, no interfaces with the backup systems, so it runs independently. It's not plugged into it because it wants to know underneath the hood what's happening, and it's detection beyond malware there. Because some of the tools that are being used, for instance, FTP servers and that kind of thing, are not malware. But Recon finds them and says, "Oh, hold on, I found this and that particular tooling for instance, exfiltration of data. And on the backup server, did you install this or not?" And sometimes you can say, "Oh yeah, we did." Flag it as, okay, we know. Otherwise, ooh, hold on, there's something installed, nobody knows about it. Start the alarms. So how to get started? Available into the Veeam Data Platform Advanced and Premium Edition. Also available now for VCSP partners with Veeam Data Platform Premium. Access through the My Account portal, and we upped the number of endpoints from 5 to 10 this year within the Veeam environment. Maybe we're gonna up it even more later on, but making sure that we can scale also in the back end, also for the different zones in different geos. Configuring API connections directly from the Recon Finance portal. This is kind of how it looks like in an architectural view. Recon being installed on the proxy here and on the backup and replication server, and it sends it to the Recon triage inbox. That's also why you as a user can log in and get that whole screen what I showed you. I can show that. Oh, let me see, where did I have that one? Yeah, this one. Then you will see this triage inbox. You can run through everything that's found. And if there are critical things, if there are high things, that kind of thing. It doesn't send data there. It only sends like metadata about things that it found. So that's also one of those things I will tell anyone in the audience. It's not uploading your data there. No, it's only uploading signatures and things that it found.
Is there a difference in the feature set if you use it with advanced or premium edition?
Totally the same. And also that same tooling is being used as incident response, so for forensics analysis. That's also what we like to do within Veeam. Have one installable, and doesn't matter how it's being used, depending on, of course, the key that's normally in it, if you can get something. But for Recon, it's the same. Suppression rules, sometimes you will have noise, because if you know, hold on, that server is also an FTP server because we upload files in that, or we send files through it, then you can just mark it, okay, that's one, that host, or that particular activity, we don't want to have an alert from it. Otherwise, you could get like alert fatigue in security operating centers, for instance. You don't want to have the same false positive over and over again. As soon as you see something, hold on, that's a false positive, use suppression rules, and it will just filter it out and scan. On the back end, we will still see it, but it will not report about it.
Just another question. I think it's important for customers or future customers in Europe. GDPR. Is there going to be like a certificate that we can give to the customers that this is like GDPR conform for them, or so because of data going out and is processed in the cloud and stuff?
The one thing I said, there's no data going out. It's only metadata going out.
Okay.
So no data itself. If you look on in the My Portal from Veeam, we already have a lot of those statements already for Veeam customers. So go into Trust Center, and you will see a lot of those statements already there. I will put it on my list because I think it's an interesting question. If you can get it also for like recon on that part.
Yeah.
So we already had this one, Veeam 1, Microsoft Sentinel, use built-in API, Veeam 1 itself, but also correlates recon data with other security signals. And that's the interesting part. You will see signals coming in. TTP is already also established where it is connected in the Mitra framework. And Microsoft Sentinel can connect that for faster detection as a whole. So you will see that those are working together in a fast way also. Making sure that all the tools you already have, get them connected, making sure that any of that data that comes in is being run through correctly and giving you the right responses. So customer use case, preventing a ransomware attack, and I always like that, preventing it instead of mopping up and restoring. So deploy recon across Veeam environment service. We already talked about it. Make sure the backup server, Active Directory are the ones you start with as the first thing, and then fill it up with the rest. Recon collects data and maps it to the Mitra attack framework, the TTPs. Recon detected high-risk events indicating brute force attack from foreign IP address, for instance. IT team was alerted based on the severity and the number of attacks or attempts in that part. IT and security teams confirmed unexpected activity and took action to block login attempts. That's kind of, okay, we see something already going on, or better said, it's a physical world. A window is smashed. We know someone should be in there. Make sure that we find them, block it, make sure that the window is closed again, and move on. IT and security teams confirmed, recon prevented at that moment in time. So why should you use this? Identify threats faster, but also focus on critical risks in that part. Accelerate the response and unify IT and security. I see too many different silo teams like IT over there, security over there. They should work together or be one department with maybe specialization, but making sure that the teams have visibility over both parts of the fence. That really helps, and also helps stopping things, because sometimes security teams see that something is happening, IT team is not responding at that part, or the other way around. And I'm coming to you then, Shalit. Or any questions?
There are some questions in here. Let me start from the very top. So I pinned those questions. In Coveware's experience, how many times has the recon been paid, the ransom been paid, but the decryption key has not been handed over by the attackers?
That's depending on the group. That's also why we have that database. That's really depending on the group. Also think about it from the perspective of the attacker. If they do that once or twice, they will be noted. And as soon as they are being flagged, people will not start paying anymore. So in their interest, they will make sure that you get that encryption key. So normally the well-established groups, they always make sure that you get encryption after payment.
It's a good one. Another question. What about licensing from a VCSP perspective? So like Coveware, all the recon scanner will be available through VDP Advanced and Premium. Is this available through the VCSP stack as well?
Yes, but I would say please reach out to your expert on VCSP, because I'm not a licensing expert, I'm a CTO. So I know about technology, not about licensing.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So last question from the audience. So how do we basically activate and download the tool?
You download it from my portal. So go to the veeam.com, go to my portal. You will see if you have the licensing for it, there will be a link there for download, even
Okay.
included with manuals and that kind of thing.
So is there a possibility to test that using like a demo or test license?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't know. Please also reach out to your direct local contact for that.
I think partners can
Partners
access.
can-
I think that's the same for partners. I think the question could be like, is it possible to get partners access to that Coveware portal to see the results of recon scanners?
I don't know. Good question. We have to follow up on that.
Yeah, at least for their customers. I mean, that would be.
Yeah, because I think because some customers might use like some managed services, so this could be
Yeah, I think they can already, but that's an assumption of mine, because I also know that for the VCSPs, because they can look for their customers into that portal.
Yeah.
But for the
Yeah,
partners,
same.
I'm not sure, because normally partners sell the license, but some of the partners are also like MSPs. So yeah, depending on the way you come in, but please let them ask to the local representatives for that one.
Yeah,
That
that would be
also
the idea.
down question.
Yeah, there's just another comment from Marcus, who's one of the vanguards. So, and this is something he's mentioning all the time, and I partially agree with that. So, would be great to get some like demos or NFRs for like especially those Veeam 100 members to get some experience and to bring it out to the audience and to the customers. But I don't know if it's something we can realize, right?
I think we can arrange that, but I think Maddie already I saw something popping, but it was too fast for me to read. So I think
Yes.
Maddie already.
Yes, I am here, and we're gonna think about in what shape or format we can do that for the Veeam 100. That's all I can say for now.
Yeah.
We heard you there. Very good.
But yeah, I just put it here in the chat, Chalit, but like, Edwin is going to follow up on the answer for that partner question. But when you're going to share the video with the overview on the cybersecurity space, once it's ready, please also share the answer to that question. So
sure, yeah,
that would be great. Thank you.
There's another question popping up from the audience. Does the recon feature need to be activated after the VDP deployment? So I think it's a yes. Basically, what I understand from that question is that you do deploy the VDP installation and the VDP license first and activate recon and install basically the agents after the base installation, which makes sense and wouldn't make sense the other way around. But for existing deployments who apply the recon license later, I think you can just install the agent and use it on an already existing environment, correct?
Yeah, it's for both. So see recon as an extra add-on you deploy after you have done the full installation.
Okay.
Because it's a tooling, and then you have to go to the Coveware, the portal. You have to make a username and password, connect that to each other. And then you also get the telemetry you can run through.
But is it possible to get it as an add-on, like for customers using Foundation?
No, then you have to upgrade to Advanced.
Okay.
So far, I know.
Yeah.
That's also make more sense in that part, because that's also why we expanded it from Premium also to into Advanced. Maybe also in the future to Foundation, but I don't know.
Okay. Any more questions in the audience?
Yeah, so the answers usually we post them into the cybersecurity space alongside that presentation as a PDF as per usual. So yeah, I think Khaled will get that done as soon as the recording is available to get everything from the same post, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. And if there are additional questions afterward, please post that also underneath that post, and we will follow up. I'm also part of that cybersecurity space, so I will jump in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Awesome.
again, we have some time to spare, like 11 minutes. Now it's 10 minutes, but that doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. So in case you have additional questions, now is the chance to post them into the chat. So let's give it another 1 or 2 minutes, and after that, I think Khalid has another survey for the group, for the audience.
Yeah. Edwin, if you just do me the honor and just skip go to the next page. Yeah. No, that's one too far.
This hidden slide.
So we need you. Just if like we just created this little let's call it survey, where you can add, like, if you have any ideas or if there are any topics we want us to talk about in one of the next sessions, we would be really happy to follow up on this. So just if you have the time and just go to the little survey and tell us what you think would be like great topics to talk about, and then we will see if we can get them, if we get speakers, or if we can prepare them by ourselves. It depends on what you're thinking about. Most probably there are topics that we haven't even thought about yet, so it would be really cool to get the feedback. And we will post this as well in in the post, and maybe we'll check what like the coolest topics are, and then put out another survey so that we can vote them up.
Another question. Yeah, go ahead.
Is Recon v3 integration to VDP 13 would be just the triage section we can see now in Veeam 1 Threat Center Shield, or any other section?
I have no clue about the question.
So basically, as I understand, is it's like just the triage section that you showed in Veeam 1, or is there more to see than the Threat Center? Or is there like a special section within Veeam 1?
VDR.
No, most likely it will be more integrated. That's my belief. But you will see this. Let me jump. You go to that particular website, you will see the triage inbox, but also the timeline reports. This is where you go to see the analytics of anything that Recon uploaded, but also that goes down into this one, and it's being used and also being pushed through to Veeam 1 and Microsoft Sentinel for that one. Yeah, and in the future it will also be part of the whole security AI and DCC dashboards and that kind of thing, is my belief. If that answers the question, because not fully understood the question there.
For the service provider partners, will there be maybe an integration to the service provider console or anything later on?
I haven't heard about it, but please post that also.
Yeah.
Under the excuse me, under the post in the cybersecurity space, because then we can also ask Vitaly and some others. Hey, this is the ask. Can we do it? No, that really helps, because those types of questions helps also develop the products and the feature set.
Yeah, sure. So we still have 5 minutes. We don't have to use them if there are not more questions. So
need to take care of those waiting music.
Yeah, sure. So if there are no more questions,
there we go again. So For other questions, please go to the cybersecurity space on community.veeam.com. Place them there. Hopefully, this was valuable for you and give you a little bit of insights in that one. I enjoyed it. Shalit, welcome to be the leader of that one. Lucas, welcome aboard. But hopefully, we'll also still see you in the cybersecurity space there. I'm not going to let you
Absolutely
go there.
will. Just have to pass over the official leadership, which doesn't mean that anything changes from my engagement and perspective against the community. So yeah, don't worry at all. I might have access to information I'm not allowed to share, but anyways, I will just try to be as active as before. We'll be co-hosting these events. So Khalid, if you need anything, just let me know. I think this is a great
sure.
collab. As I think we used to work together on different occasions on the hackathon. So yeah, this will be a cool engagement, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really thankful for you both joining me on my first session as a leader. So yeah, thank you. Thank you,
My
everybody.
pleasure. Thank you all.